Welcome to your training on ladder safety. Falling from a height is incredibly common and incredibly dangerous, and at least a third of all fall injuries involve ladders. This makes them one of the largest causes of accidents and injuries, both in the workplace and at home. For this reason, you should work from the ground whenever possible, but sometimes it's necessary to work from a height to get the job done. If you do work from a height, ladders can be a sensible and practical choice for low-risk tasks, but they should only be used for up to 30 minutes at a time. And although you don't need to be formally qualified to use a ladder, you do have to be competent. This means having the necessary skills and knowledge to use a ladder safely. This training course has been created to act as a reminder. It provides some simple steps for you to follow when you're using ladders. We want you to minimize the risks to your safety and to the safety of those around you when you're using a ladder to carry out your tasks. We cover the basics in this course and focus on step ladders, single ladders, and extension ladders, but there are other types of ladder and other equipment that you may use. For example, sometimes it might be safer for you to use a working platform or stage instead of working from a ladder. But if you do use a type of ladder that's not discussed today, just remember to follow the 4 ladder safety steps that we'll take you through now, because the same rules apply. You should also follow any manufacturer's instructions so you're aware of anything that's different from the ladders we look at today, such as fittings or ladder assembly. And last but not least, always make sure you choose the safest and most practical option for the work you need to do. This course is your guide for staying safe while you use ladders. It's split into 4 short sections, and each section covers a step you need to follow. These ladder safety steps include ladder selection, a pre-check, ladder setup, and ladder use. If you've been using ladders as part of your job for a while, chances are you've heard some of this before, but it's easy to become complacent when you repeat tasks, so this course will ensure you're up to date with ladder safety. This first section covers ladder selection. You must always check the ladder for the BSI kite mark, which means it meets the industry requirements set by British standards. And you should also check for an inspection record, which could simply be an inspection tag on the ladder. Someone in your organisation should be trained to carry out detailed visual inspections every 3 to 6 months, and they need to record the results. Only continue if the ladder has a kite mark and has passed its latest inspection. You need to choose the ladder that's most appropriate for the task, which means looking at the size, material, and duty rating of the ladder. So many injuries occur when people choose a ladder that isn't tall enough for the task, so start with size. For tasks like hanging a picture frame or changing a light bulb, you can usually opt for a step or a step ladder. But if you need more height, you should look at a single ladder, which is a type of leaning ladder. Although depending on the nature of your job or the task you need to complete, you may need an extension ladder. When making your decision, remember that you should never overreach when you're using a ladder, but you should also never work from the top 2 to 4 rungs. If you're using an extension ladder, avoid the top 4 rungs. If it's a single ladder, avoid the top 3. With step ladders, avoid the top 3 rungs if it's double-sided. If it's single-sided and doesn't have a handrail, avoid the top 2. Either way, you've climbed too high if your knees go above the stepladder platform. If you're choosing an extension ladder, make sure its maximum length is longer than its working length. This is because the ladder will get shorter when you overlap the sections during setup. The working length of the ladder needs to be long enough for you to have a secure handhold, and you need to be able to carry out your work without standing on the top 4 rungs. Never try to make a ladder taller by placing it on top of movable objects or uneven surfaces. Then there's the duty rating, which is the maximum load a ladder can safely carry. Check the label on the side of the ladder and you'll find its maximum weight capacity. This weight capacity includes your weight and the weight of anything you're carrying, so try and stick to light materials to help minimize the risk of falling. As a guideline, you should avoid carrying anything that weighs more than 10 kilos. With the duty rating, you should also consider the type of work you'll be doing on the ladder. For example, construction workers will need a ladder with a higher duty rating compared to someone who uses a stepladder for light chores at home. Just make sure you never exceed the ladder's weight limit, because you'll increase the risk of it breaking, which of course increases the risk of accidents and injuries. Human error is actually the biggest cause of ladder accidents, which is why it's so important to only use a ladder as the manufacturer has instructed. Finally, you need to think about what the ladder is made of. The most common materials are wood, fiberglass, and aluminium. Look at your options. You need to consider the environment you'll be working in and the type of work you'll be doing, but it can also come down to personal preference. Just remember to go for the safest and most practical option. As a quick guide, timber ladders are very heavy and can degrade over time if they're often used in wet conditions, but they can be used for electrical work. Fiberglass ladders can also degrade over time if they're often used outdoors, but they're strong and they're the best choice for electrical work. And aluminium ladders are normally the most popular choice because they're lightweight, strong, and resistant to rust, but they must never be used for electrical work or anywhere near electrical wires. It's also crucial to bear in mind that electrical currents can still flow through fiberglass and wood if they're wet or dirty, so it's important to keep them clean and dry. Once you've chosen a ladder, you need to complete a pre-check. You should start by making sure that you feel up to the task, and then make sure that you're wearing appropriate clothes and shoes. Your shoes need to fit securely and have good grip, and your clothes should fit well. Avoid anything baggy or loose because you want to avoid them getting caught on something. This is what I'll be wearing when I'm taking you through the ladder demonstrations throughout the program. You need to do the pre-check on the ladder to make sure everything is in good working order before you use it. This is also the time to ask for help if it's available, because it's good practice to have someone foot the ladder for you, especially if you're using a single ladder or an extension ladder. You must never use a ladder that is old, worn, or damaged in any way. To complete a thorough pre-check on the ladder, you need to look at the feet, the rungs and treads, the stiles, and any hinges, nails, screws, nuts and bolts. And for step ladders, you also need to check the top platform, the spreaders, and any locking mechanisms. You need to make sure that nothing is missing, loose, damaged, or dangerous. And when you're confident that everything is in good working order, you can go ahead with the task. The pre-check on extension ladders is similar. Just remember to check any locking mechanisms and stability and securing devices that will be used as well. If you're unsure, you can follow the manufacturer's instructions to inspect any equipment, and you can always work from a checklist and tick things off as you go. But if you do these checks regularly, chances are you'll just be able to keep a mental note. Before you set up a single or extension ladder, it's a good idea to find and mark its balance point, because it's much easier and safer to carry a ladder that's balanced when you hold it. This point will be different on every ladder, so if you use more than one, you should follow these steps for all of them. Start with the ladder on the floor and make sure you're standing behind the center of the ladder. Turn sideways and use one hand to pick it up from the stiles to see if one end tips towards the ground. If it does, keep moving your hand until the weight is evenly distributed and the ladder is balanced. Once you've found the balance point, you need to mark it. You can get some colored tape and wrap it around both stiles. Or, if the balance point is in line with a rung, you can wrap the tape around each end of the rung. You can also paint these points or use a permanent marker. If you come across any faults or have any concerns after completing a ladder pre-check, do not use it. Report to your manager straight away. If you are the manager, arrange to have the ladder fixed or replaced and have it tagged so your colleagues know the ladder is out of use. Just before you set up the ladder, you need to get it from A to B. And if you're working alone, the simplest way to carry a ladder is by doing a low shoulder carry. You need to start by checking for overhead obstructions and any obstructions around you. It's also a good idea to quickly scan the route you'll be taking. The space must be clear before you continue. Once the coast is clear, face the opposite way to the direction you'll be walking in, so you're standing sideways on, next to the balance point. Then kneel down onto the knee next to the ladder. Use the hand furthest from the ladder to hold the stile at the balance point. And put your other hand slightly behind on the closest rung. Get a good grip, and as you stand up, lift the ladder and turn 180 degrees to face the direction you'll be walking in, placing your shoulder under the ladder stile in one smooth movement. If you're using a long or heavy ladder, it's better to have someone help you carry it. And if there is two of you, make sure you're both on the same side of the ladder as you lift and move it. The next step is to set up the ladder correctly, and there's a few key things to remember. Always put the ladder on clean, firm and level ground. Always check for overhead obstructions. Always have the ladder facing your work if possible. This means step ladders need enough room to open fully so the locking device can be secured. And you must make sure that you never place the ladder by windows or doors unless they're locked. Never obstruct emergency exits. Never work within 10 horizontal meters of an overhead power line unless it's been made dead. And if you're using a non-self-supporting ladder, which includes single and extension ladders, make sure the surface you're leaning it against is solid and secure. Then you need to use the 1:4 ratio. This means bringing the ladder 1 unit out for every 4 units up. This means the ladder should be at a 75-degree angle. An easy way to see if you've got it right is to put your toes at the foot of the ladder and put your arms straight out in front of you so they're parallel with the floor. The palms of your hands should be able to rest on the ladder rungs. If you have an extension ladder, you need to make sure you extend it safely and securely, and never forget to check for overhead obstructions. If you're working by yourself, start by laying the ladder on the ground, with the fly or top section underneath the base of the ladder. Put the ladder feet against the solid surface you'll be working with, such as the brick wall of a building. Then go to the top of the ladder and walk it upright by lifting the top rung and walking forwards with your hands moving from one rung to the next. Once the ladder is vertical, put your hands on the second and fifth rung from the bottom and pull the base of the ladder away from the wall to prevent it from falling backwards. Then you can push the fly up manually, making sure that both rung hooks connect securely onto a rung to lock the fly and the base together. If your ladder has a pulley, grab the rope or halyard and pull on it to raise the fly to the height you need. Just make sure everything is locked securely before you release the halyard. Then finish by making sure the halyard is taut and tied around the middle of a lower rung. If you want to learn more, see our additional resources. Then you need to position the ladder correctly by using the 1:4 ratio. Remember to ask for help if possible so someone can foot the ladder for you. But if you're working alone, do what you can to secure the feet of the ladder yourself. If you're working on grass, you can flip the ladder feet over and drive the spikes firmly into the ground. If you're working on something solid like decking, you can keep the ladder feet flat and screw down a cleat to foot it. The ladder should also be attached to secure contact points from both styles. This should be done near the top of the ladder. But if possible, you should also secure the midsection too. If it's being used to access another floor level, the ladder needs to be 1 meter higher than the landing point, because you must have a secure handhold when you're stepping on and off the ladder. No matter what type of ladder you're using or what location you're working in, you should section off the immediate area to help protect yourself and anyone who walks past. Once the ladder is stable and sectioned off in a safe location, you can begin. Using the ladder correctly is the final step, and I'll take you through a quick example now to demonstrate best practice when you're using a ladder. To start, put any equipment you'll be using on the stepladder platform so you don't have to carry it. You should always keep your body facing the ladder. And follow the belt buckle rule, which means your belt buckle or navel needs to stay central. Always keep 3 points of contact with the ladder, which is both feet and one hand, or both hands and one foot. Make sure you stop 2 or 3 rungs from the top, and keep both feet on the same rung when you carry out your task. Remember that your knees should never be higher than the top of the ladder. Another part of the 3 points of contact rule can come into play here, because you can use your knees as a third point of contact if you need both hands to carry out your task. You can also use your chest as a third point of contact, but either of these should only be used for short periods of time. Then, once the task is complete, put your equipment back down on the platform, grip the ladder firmly and climb down. The same rules apply for using a single ladder and an extension ladder. But remember that it's good practice to ask for help because you'll be working at a greater height. Your partner should foot the ladder while you climb and carry out your task. Use a tool belt to hold any equipment you need, but if you can't avoid carrying something up the ladder, just make sure it's lightweight and only carry items that give you one hand free to grip the ladder. No matter what type of ladder you're using, there are some key do's and don'ts that you should always follow. You should always face the ladder and grip the rungs firmly as you climb up and down. Keep 3 points of contact. Follow the belt buckle rule. Face your work head on if it's possible. And as you can see, you should always stop before the 4th rung on an extension ladder and the 3rd rung on a single ladder. Start by checking for any obstructions above you and around you. If the space is clear, make sure you're holding the ladder securely as you lift the legs and put them close to the vertical surface you've been working against. To lower a ladder, put one hand on a rung at chest height and the other hand on the rung above. Step back slowly with your hands moving up the rungs as the top of the ladder comes towards you. When you get to the balance point, put one arm through the gap between the rungs so the style is resting on your shoulder and use your hands to hold the ladder. Then turn carefully so you're facing the direction you'll be walking in. As you walk to your storage point, keep the feet of the ladder slightly elevated because this will help with your balance. It's also common sense, best practice and good ladder etiquette to never slide down the stiles, jump off the ladder, throw objects off the ladder, or attempt to move the ladder when you or someone else are on the rungs. And once you've completed your task, always make sure the ladder is stored away safely. Ladder safety also includes looking after ladders properly by keeping them in good working order and by storing them away safely. No matter what your ladder is made of, it needs to be kept clean and stored somewhere where it's protected from the weather to prevent it from deteriorating. It should be supported horizontally on racks or mounted on the wall, and you shouldn't hang it from the stiles or rungs. Instead, you should tie the ladder to the support points to reduce the risk of it getting damaged. All ladders should be cleaned regularly, and any fixtures need to be lubricated to keep the ladder working properly. Mild soap and water may be all you need to clean them. Just make sure wooden ladders aren't soaked with excessive amounts of water. You should check the manufacturer's cleaning instructions before you start. Wooden ladders also need to be stored in a ventilated room, away from dampness and excessive heat. This is so the wood doesn't expand and change the structure of the ladder. You can also treat the ladder with a sealant to help weatherproof it if you use it outside. Fiberglass ladders must also be stored away from warm or moist environments because humid weather and UV rays will break down the material over time. You can use certain acrylic lacquers or polyurethane coatings to help prevent UV damage. If you have an aluminium ladder, the ladder itself can be stored outside, but if it contains PVC or other plastics in it, which is usually the case for the fixtures and feet, then they can break down in UV light, so it's best to store this ladder inside too. You've now completed your ladder safety training. We hope you found this course useful. Our aim has been to provide you with ladder safety best practice and any important advice that will help to keep you safe when you're using a ladder. We've made it so the ladder safety steps are simple to follow, easy to remember, and most importantly, relevant to everyone. You may have only just started to use ladders. You may only use ladders occasionally, or you may use them frequently and you've completed this training to refresh your knowledge. All that's left is the test. Feel free to go back through the course before you begin if you want to refresh your memory. Good luck!